In today's episode, we're tackling a vital topic that resonates deeply with all of us as educators: boundaries. We'll explore how to identify where your boundaries may be lacking, both at home and in the workplace. If you've been feeling fatigued, overwhelmed, or like you're constantly shouldering extra responsibilities, you're not alone. This conversation is designed specifically for you, offering insights and strategies to help you reclaim your space and well-being. This episode is part of our Boundaries series because boundaries are so essential in both our personal and professional lives. Over the next few episodes, we'll dive into different aspects of setting and maintaining boundaries, equipping you with tools to create a more balanced and fulfilling life. Let's get started. Welcome to the Edgewell Podcast, a show created for, by, and with teachers. I'm Alex.
And I'm Chelsea. With over 30 years of combined teaching experience, our goal is to share insights and connect with fellow educators on how to thrive both personally and professionally.
Join us as we dive deep into the well of information, filled with meaningful discussions, practical tips, and ideas that go way beyond the classroom walls. Let's be well
and do well together. Well, I am so glad that we are doing a series on boundaries because, like we said in the intro, this is just so important in our personal and professional lives. The thing is, sometimes we don't realize where boundaries could be missing. So that's something we're really going to focus on talking about today. When we talk about boundaries, we're talking about your time, we're talking about your energy, and we are talking about your mental well-being. If you're constantly asking yourself, why am I always tired? Why am I the one dealing with everything? Then it's time to take a closer look at those feelings and really ask yourself a question. Do I need more boundaries in my life? I've been there. Alex, I'm sure you've been there.
I sure have. Yes. Still there, probably.
Yes, it's a process. And this is another one of those processes that we have to constantly work on, but it is totally worth it.
100%. You know, as you were just saying that, I was thinking about the people in my life who I think, and this is an opinion, have really strong boundaries. And when I visualize them, I see them as kind of calmer, more in tune with their health, whether it be physical or emotional. And I mean, I'm placing judgment on that. And maybe these people would say something different, but there just seems to be an overarching sense of agency and self-control over what they do with their time and what they are not willing to do. And I just get an overall sense of life satisfaction. They're not being maybe pulled in the million directions. And when they are, they're able to identify it and say, no, thanks. I would like to share a really quick story about someone that we both know. And I really respect this person. And I needed this person's help with something really silly, minute. And this person responded to me and said, I can't right now. I'm in the middle of doing A, B, C, D. In that moment, she protected her energy. She did not have enough to give to me. And she prioritized the thing that she had to get off of her plate in that moment. And she created a boundary, and it was with a very simple, I can't right now, I'm in the middle of something. And this was early in my career. And I remember actually being a little bit taken aback because I felt like my need in that moment was really important. Mm-hmm. And it was my first lesson in kind of having someone really communicate respectfully around what they needed in a moment. And this person knows who they are. And it was just a really great learning moment for me. And I'm able to do that now in my career, and it feels really good. But there's the other side of that, which we'll discuss later in this episode.
Yes, you have to be able to see that happening with other people so that you can also learn to do that. Important at school, important at work, important at home. Teaching is a demanding job. We've discussed many types of tired in our episodes on rest. Let's bring those up right now, and how we can be affected. So those are episodes 22, 23, and 24. Target your tired, justify it, and how to get that rest. I mean, this podcast is about doing well and being well. You can't do that unless you have set some boundaries that protect your energy and your time and your health. So it's not about getting more energy or getting more time. We all have the same amount of time. It's about knowing our capacities and knowing our wants and our needs and meeting them. We are responsible for that.
Right. So, in this episode, we're going to break down this conversation into three key areas. We are going to identify where boundaries are missing, consider the feelings around certain responsibilities, and looking at understanding the weight of an overflowing basket. And we've talked about that basket before, Chelsea.
We're always carrying it. It's always there.
All right, well, let's lift this basket into our first topic, which is identify where boundaries are missing. So, really, the first step in all of this is awareness. Where are you feeling overwhelmed or stressed or tired? And these are often clues that you don't have enough boundaries in place. Think about the moments where you feel like you are the only one handling certain tasks, whether it's at work or at home, and you feel very kind of alone in it and it's all on you. And ask yourself, are there other people who can help with this? Most of the time, there are, but we take on too much because we haven't established clear boundaries. And I know for me, this is partially a me problem because I feel like if I'm not the one doing it, I'm not in control of how it's done. So, I
Yeah.
mean, this is also, I'm not a type A person. I just sometimes think that my way is not the best way, but the way that I want it to be done. And so it limits me from being able to, let's say, delegate or ask for help. But I am really working on that right now.
It just reminds me of the episode The Power of Teacher Collaboration, when I said, I think I want to take on these projects myself because I'm going to be in control of these projects. But then realizing how much better it can be when you're working with someone else, or you're giving someone else some responsibility, or you're putting trust in someone else. It can really open up so many opportunities for you and just open your mind to these new experiences and gain you more time, more space, more energy. And this really makes me think about my household. So let's bring it back to the home. There are three other people in my house who can keep my household running smoothly, but I tend to take it on myself. And only recently, over the last few years, have I said, no, I need to have some more conversations. And I've brought this up before about who can be responsible for what in this area, because we are all responsible for this space. And that is an extremely crucial lesson to teach our children, I believe. And this also reminds me of a time at school. This was the best when another colleague of ours was with my class, and this colleague was talking to students about work ethic and how important that is later on in life and all of these responsibilities that we need to keep up with. And this person said, if you think school is hard, try running a household. And we laughed, but it was so true. And then we talked a little bit more about that. I mean, the amount of responsibilities that come with running a household, creating a home, being a part of a team. We need help and we need boundaries in these areas if there are other people in that space.
Yes, and we've talked in the past quite a bit about showing trust to the other people in the space, sharing workload, whether that be the classroom or at home. That level of ownership is good. And I'm talking a little bit more about younger kids here, but you're also teaching skills so that they're not going off one day on their own and having no idea how to, run a space. There are some very basic skills that exist, and from those basic skills grow much more complex skills. So I think you can look at it as a community piece too, where everybody feels more a part of the space and more belonging of the space if everyone is responsible for caring for the space and it's learning. So little classroom there, a little home there, but all part of life. And I always think back to people who, had really big families and everyone had a job. And I think that everyone should have a role to play in whatever space we're in.
Yeah, it's about teaching independence. We teach independence at school, we teach independence with our children at home, but there is a balance between getting help and being independent. So we need to have both of those things in our lives, and there are ways of doing that. So when it comes to thinking about where our boundaries are missing, we can reflect on our mood, we can reflect on our energy levels. And if we're constantly feeling drained or frustrated, this could indicate a lack of boundaries.
You might add in the word to that resentment. If you're starting to resent the tasks that you have to fulfill, quote unquote, and it's not bringing you any sort of satisfaction, that's kind of a check-in that I have, where I'm starting to feel resentment of my time being pulled, and then I have to look at that again. And it's a tough balancing act, because there are responsibilities that we have that we have to fulfill the responsibility, and you can't offload them onto other people. And oh well, you resent it, but get her done. And then there's a whole bunch of add-on things, and those are the things I think we're talking about here, where, as you said before, like a feelings check-in, if those are your responses and it's always in that category, to look at that and then maybe make that connection towards seeing if you can ask for support, take some stuff out of the basket, give it to someone else completely. I don't know.
Yes. Okay, so let's move on to those feelings and considering the feelings that we might have around certain responsibilities. In thinking about the feelings that we have, like resentment or worry or guilt, these are some feelings that might creep up when you're thinking about setting those boundaries. So, are you worried about disappointing your family if you don't get something done? Are you feeling guilty about not being able to please everyone? Here's a big one for us as teachers at school and at home. We have, could be 30, could be 100, could be more people at school, students at school, who we're always trying to engage and inspire, and we're trying to make learning fun. It's like planning a wedding. It's like doing a seating plan at a wedding. You want to seat all of your guests in the perfect area so they're so happy. The reality is, you're not going to please everyone who comes to that wedding. Someone's going to have something to say about it, and that's okay. That's something we have to live with, especially when we're setting boundaries for ourselves. Maybe you feel like you're not being a team player at work because you don't take on everything that's available. These feelings can show up when our boundaries may be too loose and we're trying to meet everyone else's expectations, but sometimes that can be at the expense of our own well-being. And if we're recognizing that, then we can work to fix that.
There's a quote that this is reminding me of, and it's by Bryant McGill. And it's, if you try to make everyone happy, everyone will be happy but you. And that's ultimately what it is. You're
Yes.
sacrificing yourself to the point where you're trying to make everyone else around you happy, pleased, lighten everyone else's workload. But if it comes at the expense of your happiness, and I'm not talking about a one-off or for 1 week you have to be super sacrificial. I'm talking about an ongoing trend in your life. Then long term, what's really happening is you're never going to be your best self for everyone else, because you're not going to be satisfied or happy and taking care of you. And I mean, this is what our podcast is ultimately about. I know I'm not the best teacher. I know I'm not the best family member when I am always looking out for everyone else at the expense of my own health. And that's physical, emotional, spiritual, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, Chelsea. That's the quote that sums it up. And that quote, I just told you who said it, but the quote was brought to light by a family member once, who was observing that my mother in particular had been running around like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to, make everyone's requests and needs, happy. And in the meantime, she's kind of falling apart. And this this family member wrote that in a card to her. And I think it was a shift for her to see that quote and realize, look, you just can't make everyone happy all the time.
Amazing lesson to learn. If you're trying to please everyone else and you're not happy, then you're probably looking around at everyone else and seeing how happy they are. So here's something that I've learned. Ask yourself if you're the must be nice person. So do you look at what other people are doing? They're like, hey, this weekend I'm going skiing and I'm doing this and that. And you're like, well, must be nice. If you're the must be nice person, then maybe you have to take a look at your time and where your boundaries are so that you can get that skiing in. And again, I know that we often have obligations that are holding us back from doing things we want to do. Yes, there are times in our lives where that's happening and there are barriers. But I think that this can be an option if you are looking around, or something to think about, if you are looking around saying, must be nice, but maybe you can do it too.
Maybe you can. And Chelsea, really strong point. It must be nice because, yeah, it is nice going and taking care of yourself and going skiing. And if it's something that you value, even when you have all of these barriers and boundaries, how can you make that work for yourself? It may not look like it looks for that person, but is there a way that you can make it happen within the life that you have? Something to think about.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Chelsea, but I have an issue with always being worried about hurting people's feelings when I say no. I never want to send a message that I don't care about someone and what they're caring about in that moment. And so that's a big barrier for me is I don't want to let people down. And that's I don't want to say that's something I want to work on because it's something that I am happy that I am that way in some ways, right?
Yep.
Because it's part of who I am. And I also need to make sure that I remind myself of all the things that we just talked about when it comes to possibly saying no.
But I think that you have worked on this. I mean, let's use the example of setting boundaries with students. And you had mentioned this in a previous episode where you will speak to a student and say, listen, I want to hear from you, or I want to have this conversation with you, but I can't do it right now. Can we set a time for later? Or can we find something that works for both of us at one time or another with whatever it may be that you're talking about? So there is a way to do it. However, there are times when somebody will just get hurt from the boundary you set, but the boundary is necessary. And that's something that they have to deal with on their end.
Right. So as one people often say this line, that's a you issue. Is that is
Yeah,
that what you're saying basically? which
it's
which
the
is such
truth.
a but it's the truth. And yeah. That's why I think diplomacy is really important. All right. So that's a whole other episode is well, and we'll get there, is the how, right? Because you always have to make sure that you're preserving your own needs and your dignity and what you need and the dignity of the person that you're talking to and the relationship. You always want to preserve the relationship. So there's a way to do it. And I think the only time that it ever becomes where you have to get non-diplomatic is if the person keeps on pushing back to the point where you have to set a very firm kind of no. And maybe that's where the feelings would definitely get hurt. But yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think they can get hurt in any relationship. I mean, you have to take a step back and get into that awareness piece and think about why that person is setting that boundary. How do you have a healthy relationship without healthy boundaries? Okay, that's another episode too, but really important. Should I be hurt right now by this? Should my feelings be hurt, or is this going to make my relationship better? So, something to think about. But I guess we're going off on the tangent now. So let's bring it
Well, I have to
back.
add,
Oh,
no,
after
I
one
have
more
one more
thing.
thing to the tangent. So I've often been surprised in moments with my peers and with my colleagues and with my family as to how easily those in my life can set a boundary with me and say no to me, despite the fact that I find it hard to say no to them. So that has been something I'm sure I have taken it personally, actually, if I'm being honest, from time to time. But what that really has been for me is a lesson in the fact that I still love and care about those people, and they were able to say no to me, and I want to continue on with the relationship. So I almost am grateful for a lot of the no's that I've gotten because it's taught me that it is okay to say no, right?
Completely agreed. It's more modeling, but when you're modeling and you have that communication piece, this is key with students. You can explain things, especially to the younger generations. They need to understand it. So teaching and explaining why we're doing this can really help them with creating their own boundaries.
All right, then, tangent be done. That brings us to our third topic, which is to make sure that we understand the weight of an overflowing basket.
Yes, we often talk about having a full basket in terms of responsibilities. But what happens when that basket becomes too heavy? When too many people are trying to take from it, it's a sign that your boundaries are not strong enough. Setting boundaries means protecting your well being so that you're not constantly drained or feeling guilty. We have to remember that giving all of our time and not taking any of our time can lead to that resentment of others. So, this is a good time to bring up the importance of our own passions and hobbies and non essentials and things that merely bring us joy. Because maybe your basket is so full that you aren't getting out with your friends. You aren't seeing family members that you want to see. You aren't going skiing. You aren't getting the leisure time with your kids. The list goes on. Whatever it is that brings you joy. Can you change something here? And I know we've already sort of addressed this, but it's just very important to be able to get these things into our lives. And how do we do this? How do we get these things that bring us joy into our lives? We have to set boundaries. Alex, you brought up a point in a previous episode about watching TV. And I say watching TV because I think so many of us can really relate to watching TV. Or I'll add going on screens, let's say scrolling through social media, scrolling through something, online shopping, whatever it may be. The internet can really hook you. So, can I sacrifice a little bit of time here? Maybe I'll avoid watching TV 3 hours a week so that I can do what I really enjoy doing. Or maybe I'm doing some of my responsibilities during that time and doing the things that I enjoy during this other time. You know what I mean?
I do. It's this 24-hour constant trade-off, and it's about seeking balance. I can tell you with the TV, for instance, when I get into like a binge of the TV, it's not balanced. And I have other things in my life that I'm more passionate about and will feel that there's a void if I'm not exercising those passions, right? So really just looking, even marking down the amount of time that you're spending and do a trade and make sure that you're cutting into that to do what is more important. I wonder if we ever mapped out like a weekend or all of your after school time and really looked at where you're spending all that time. What would it be like? A time audit? A time audit would help. Yeah, that's another episode, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a
A
good
time
idea.
audit. Yeah, a time audit of what you're doing. And then is that nurturing your soul? So yes, it does nurture my soul to watch something on HBO that has a lot of depth or a really good show on Netflix. But does it have to nurture my soul for 6 hours? Yes, I'm time bundling while I'm doing it. But what am I giving up while I do that time? And there are other things that, are more important for me to be doing. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the big question here. What is interfering or distracting me from doing what I want to be doing or what I feel like I need to be doing? And not a negative pressure, but something that is positive in your life that you want to be doing more of. This is also important to teach our youth of tomorrow. I'm just going to add that with my own kids, screen time is a thing in life nowadays. I always say to them, if your screen time is interfering with or distracting you from your responsibilities, then we need to set more limits. We need to set more boundaries around that screen time. And this really helps them understand the effects of this. And honestly, there are times when I have to let them fail with this. So they don't follow through on a responsibility because I didn't go and remind them to, let's say get off a screen or, shut the TV off because I want them to learn that on their own. So I will then address that afterwards. You didn't follow through on this. And I believe it is because you were perhaps distracted in this area. Is it because of the screen time? We'll have a discussion around that just to help them recognize what are the things that might be taking away from the other things that they have to be doing.
So, in listening to you, I'm having this bit of a realization. I'm going to try to articulate it. And that is that when I think of boundaries in my world, I am thinking of saying no to things that I don't want to do because it's interfering with things that I want to do. But as I listen to you bring up my TV mention, and you are also relating it to your kids and their screen time, I am realizing that boundaries can also be placed around and need to be placed around things that you genuinely enjoy doing, because it can be equally detrimental to things that really will fill your well and make you better. But it's kind of a catch-22, because it does fill my well to chill out and watch TV but how much time is wasted and what could I accomplish that is even more balanced, let's say. So it's just interesting how, I mean, you could even talk about boundaries in the context of, eating or exercising. Maybe
Yeah.
you're going to the gym way too much and need to set some boundaries around how much time you're spending there because it's eating up too much of your life. I think of the gym as a good thing. And yet, not if it kicks you out of balance. So we're having one conversation, but it's two conversations. And I didn't realize it was two conversations, but it's two conversations, Chelsea.
Yeah, this applies to so many areas of life. The pendulum swings too far, and then we have to bring it back to the middle.
So I think that time audit is a nice way to find the middle. Because then you're just kind of doing like math, like math teachers, like a little compensation, take from here, bring it over here, make easier numbers, find the middle. Yeah. Well, I had
That's
to do a
right.
little allusion to math teachers. I wonder what percentage of our listeners are math teachers, Chelsea.
I don't know. We'll have to do a survey and find out, do some math with that.
Let's do that. All right. Well, I think it's time for us to move forward to our conclusion. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Well, I just did it. I set a boundary. I'm putting an end to this episode. I'm putting a pin in it. I'm drawing a square around it. We'll just do the conclusion, the takeaways. What do you think?
Yes, and thank you for letting me know that in such a polite way. I appreciate it. I'm not hurt.
Do you want to hear another way that I could do it?
Yeah, please.
I'm going to send you an iMessage. Okay. I've really enjoyed this episode and spending some time with you. And I have some other things that I need to get to. So I think it's time to finish this up. You cool with that?
I'm cool with that. That's great. And you know what? Don't forget that we are going to go through how to set these boundaries and language to use over the next few episodes. But first, let's remember that boundaries are not about being rigid or selfish. They're about protecting your well-being. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed or like you are doing too much, take a moment to reflect on where your boundaries are missing. When you set those boundaries, you're not only lifting the weight off of your shoulders, you're also filling your own well. You can't pour from an empty well, so protecting your energy is essential.
Perfectly said. And I will point out that a well has a non-permeable wall. And here are our takeaways. 1, reflect on your mood and energy levels. If you're constantly feeling drained or frustrated, this could indicate a lack of boundaries.
2, if you're constantly trying to meet others' expectations and feeling guilty when you don't, it could be a sign that stronger boundaries are needed.
3, when your basket is too heavy, it's time to set boundaries. You don't have to keep on doing more and more and more for everyone at your own expense. Thanks for listening to the Eduwell podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a positive review. It helps others to find us.
Follow us on Instagram and Pinterest to help spread the word. For more inspiration, tips, and book recommendations, just head to the show notes and join the Eduwell newsletter today. Until next time, be well
And do well.